Blood stained the edge of the groom's white tuxedo jacket, a faint patch he tried desperately to hide with his hand as he stepped toward the glittering aisle. His chest was tight, his pulse a frantic drum, and he prayed no one noticed the trembling of his legs. Behind him, the heavy doors of the ballroom closed with an echo that felt like judgment. Everyone was staring already. He swallowed hard, feeling like an imposter about to be exposed in front of the entire world. Viewers of Kindness Diaries who believe in hope, compassion, and second chances, like, comment, share, and subscribe to support stories that remind us humanity still shines. The chandelier's dripping crystal light seemed to mock him, shimmering over rows of elegant guests who whispered behind manicured hands and polished smiles. Yet the true shock didn't strike until the billionaire, the man everyone assumed was merely a bodyguard or some distant guest, stepped forward, and the groom, an ordinary young man named Avery, bowed his head. His fingers found the billionaire's hand with the humbled grip of someone who owed his entire life to this giant of a man. Avery whispered a greeting so soft it felt like a confession. "Hello, boss." The air went still, as if someone had pressed pause on the entire wedding. The bride's family, wealthy, polished, and ever conscious of appearances, froze with widened eyes. The bride herself, a beautiful woman named Celeste with dark curls arranged in perfection, clutched her lily bouquet tighter, confusion and panic swirling in her gaze. Avery wasn't supposed to have a past like this. Not at her wedding. Avery's mind spun with memories he didn't want here. Not when he was supposed to be celebrating love. Not when he had worked so hard to build a life worthy of Celeste. He straightened but still felt small. The man he had bowed to, Malik Carter, was not just a boss, he was the reason Avery was alive. The reason Avery had climbed out of a life of homelessness and hunger that had once threatened to swallow him whole. If anyone in this shining marble palace knew that truth, Avery feared he would lose everything, even Celeste. But moments like this never begin at the moment the world witnesses. They start years before, in shadows, in desperation. Avery had grown up in a neighborhood where dreams fell apart quicker than the bricks on the abandoned houses. His mother worked 2 jobs until her heart gave out, leaving him alone at 16. He slept in shelters, sometimes behind dumpsters, clutching the few possessions he dared to keep. What hurt most wasn't hunger or cold, it was invisibility. People passed him like he was scenery. A ghost. A problem to avoid. He found a job sweeping floors at a construction firm, but even that vanished overnight when the company shut down. Avery fell back into survival mode, ashamed of how quickly life could erase progress. The city lights always glowed, but for him, they were like stars, beautiful, unreachable. That's when Malik first appeared. A towering presence in a midnight blue suit, stepping out of a car that cost more than Avery could imagine. Malik wasn't there to give charity. He had walked straight into the alley where Avery was resting against the cold brick, hands shaking from exhaustion. Malik crouched, his expensive shoes touching dirt without hesitation. Avery had expected disgust. Instead, Malik saw potential. He brought Avery into his company, not to sweep floors, but to learn. Engineering. Management. Real skills. Malik pushed him as hard as life ever had, but this time Avery had someone rooting for him to rise. Malik never asked for gratitude, only effort. And Avery gave it everything. Years later, against every statistic and every scar carved into his past, Avery stood educated, skilled, and starting his path toward success. And then Celeste entered his life like sunlight warming a long-frozen heart. She loved him for his kindness, his sincerity, never questioning the gaps in his story or the way he changed the subject whenever she mentioned family backgrounds. Celeste's family believed Avery was from wealth, a belief he never encouraged but feared correcting. How do you tell someone you love that you once slept in alleyways and begged for coins just to stay alive? Celeste's parents would never accept someone like that, someone like him. He kept the truth buried. He wanted to earn his new life before revealing the old one. But secrets never stay buried where love and judgment collide. Now they stood in a ballroom carved from luxury, Malik unexpectedly attending at Avery's invitation, the one gesture Avery believed would show his gratitude. Yet Avery hadn't expected Malik's arrival to cause such a reaction. He didn't anticipate how bowing to the man who saved him would expose him more than any confession. Whispers crackled through the air like sparks threatening to ignite a scandal. Celeste's father's jaw tightened, his pride bruised. Her mother pressed a trembling hand to her pearls as if the entire room might collapse from disgrace. Celeste's eyes begged for truth. Avery could feel her heart breaking in real time. Malik, calm as steel, kept holding Avery's hand, not to own him, but to steady him. Malik understood something that no one else could. Avery's shame came not from his past, but from believing he didn't deserve love from this world. The officiant cleared his throat, uncomfortable, glancing helplessly between them. The wedding teetered on an emotional cliff, Avery's future threatening to crash if he didn't speak. Avery drew in a breath that tasted like fear. His voice trembled as he confessed without any dialogue form needed, revealing how Malik had found him when he had nothing, how he worked day and night to build a life worth sharing. He told them he wasn't born into privilege. He fought for every scrap of dignity he now possessed. He told them love made him brave enough to step away from hiding. The room was so silent he could hear his own heartbeat. Celeste stared at him, eyes filling with tears so heavy they belonged to a lifetime's worth of emotion. He braced for rejection. Then Celeste stepped closer, her bouquet lowering to her side, her fingertips brushing Avery's cheek with a tenderness that silenced the judgment around them. She didn't cry from betrayal. She cried because he had carried pain alone when she would have held it with him. Her voice, trembling but resilient, radiated acceptance stronger than any vow. It was the sound of love choosing truth over image. Her father wavered, anger and pride warring in his eyes, but even he could see the unbreakable bond forming right before him. Malik crossed his arms, a silent defender ready to shield Avery if needed. What felt like an endless breath finally released as Celeste's parents nodded, hesitant but moved by a courage they could not ignore. The officiant resumed, voice steadier now, and the ceremony flowed forward, not polished and perfect like before, but genuine, raw, beautifully imperfect. Avery slipped the ring onto Celeste's finger with hands no longer shaking, and when they kissed, cheers erupted louder than the whispers ever had. Near the ending, viewers, if this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to continue supporting powerful messages of compassion. Malik was the first to clap, a thunderous sound filled with pride, and soon the whole room followed. People who moments ago judged now stood applauding. Avery didn't bow this time. He stood tall. Just before the final emotional closing moment, viewers, please comment what part of the story inspired you the most. Avery looked around, realizing that sometimes the most extraordinary journey isn't from wealth to wealth, but from nothing to being loved. He had walked into the ceremony fearing his truth would destroy everything. Instead, his truth had rebuilt him. The billionaire smiled at the young man who no longer saw himself as someone beneath the world. Avery squeezed Celeste's hand, tears finally falling, not from fear, but overwhelming gratitude. Life had tested him brutally, but love had given him the strength to rise, and kindness had given him a chance to become more than his past. In that moment, surrounded by forgiveness, acceptance, and a future he once believed impossible, Avery finally understood what family truly meant.